You are at war with yourself and likely don't realize it. Your thoughts, beliefs, habits, and actions often sabotage you. Are they helping you overcome adversity or setting you up for failure? To win this battle, you must connect with your inner warrior. We all have a warrior within us, one that strengthens our resolve and helps us to rise to meet life's challenges. If you're just surviving rather than thriving, then it's time to embrace the warrior archetype, live the warrior ethos, and ascend. If you are a veteran, first responder, or someone looking to take charge of your life, find your tribe, and then be the hero of your own story, this podcast is for you. Join Mike Kinney and Matt Hastings, two retired U.S. Army officers who served in U.S. Army Special Operations and Army Aviation units, as they share with you optimal performance practices they learned in their time with the Military and Warriors Ascent, a 501c3 nonprofit that helps veterans and warriors with PTS.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Warriors Ascent podcast. I'm Mike. This is Matt.
Episode 3.
Warrior Ethos. So, welcome back. Glad you are all here. So when we talked last time, it really centered on warrior archetype. This notion that a warrior archetype resides in everybody, and that you tap into that to overcome adversity. And that's absolutely critical. But the question then becomes, how is it that you manifest that? What does the warrior archetype look like in execution? And as we, said in the pilot, we want you to embrace your warrior archetype and live the warrior ethos. So bottom line, hey, it's living the warrior ethos is the way to, I'll say, manifest that archetype. And the subject of this podcast is going going to focus on that. Like we'll talk about, what does that look like? What are the values? What are the ethos that embody the warrior archetype? So with that said, I'll point to our symbol here with the Latin prudentia, fortitudo, and gravitas, right? So I'll call them our cardinal virtues. But prudentia, we'll start with that. So prudentia, right? Sound decision-making, logic, reasoning. Really, bottom line, what we're trying to encapsulate with that is sound decision-making, right? Choosing the right course of action. I don't want to say not making mistakes because you got to put yourself out there, but really focusing on disciplining your mind is really the bottom line.
Cutting through distractions, cutting through inner voice telling you can't do it.
Yeah, staying focused, right? Staying resolute, right? But, doing the right things for the right reasons. Again, making sound decisions. I say logic and reasoning. We live now in an era where people are emoting, right? Emotions, right. And we are all emotional creatures, emotional beings. We get that. But when you can't subordinate your emotions to logic, when you're doing, what they say in psychological terms, emotional reasoning, that does not serve us well. So that's why, for us, prudentia is I'll say a very important virtue because it drives and it governs behavior, our thoughts, discipline, all of that.
And it's not to say that the warrior ethos doesn't incorporate emotion. It does. It just means that you are in command of your emotions.
I love it.
And that you are driving the ship. That you're not going to let chaos descend amongst your outcomes because you didn't embrace this. You didn't focus. You didn't have prudentia.
No, I love it, man. No, exactly. Bottom line is, hey, if the Warriors got a degree of passion and conviction, we're not emotionless automatons.
Right.
To Matt's point, I mean, you've got that passion and that conviction, and that is an emotion, but never to the point where it's not governed by logic and reasoning, because then it's unbridled, and you run into real issues there. You're doing emotional reasoning, and I think as many can attest that doesn't always end well, right? So that's why we find that to be so important. The next one is fortitude. Grit, determination, perseverance,
The hard stuff.
the hard stuff. I mean, you could even take it a level further and say, you know, anti-fragility, not only just being resilient, but coming back even better, stronger
Right.
after adversity.
This is another one we talk about victimhood and don't slip into this feeling that it's all happened to me, and it could have happened to you. And, but you can't stay the victim. You just can't.
I mean, to your point, what we
that
say
grit,
at Warriors
that
Ascent,
dedication, that's, you know, the resiliency, those words, that what that means is all those words are the hard leg work it takes.
right?
You know, and that's the stuff that's really, you know, unless you're a certain kind of person, you may not make it.
Yeah.
Through whatever it is, you know, fortitude.
That's right. The fortitude, you know, the ability to persevere. But what I was going to say is, you know, Warriors Ascent, we like to say, hey, bad things happen to good people. We see that all the time.
Right.
With our veterans and first responders, many of whom have been through some really bad situations, whether in the conduct of their jobs or even just like in childhood and stuff like that. So bad things happen to good people, and we get that. But really, you know, in terms of fortitude, it is, you know, it may not be your fault, as they say. I think that's, you know,
But there's a way to turn it into strength somehow.
yeah. I mean, may not be your fault that something bad happened to you, but it's your responsibility in terms of how it is that you're going to move past that. And that really, quite frankly, is where fortitude comes in. Is, all right, I've got to move past this. I've got to deal with this. I've got to overcome this. And that's absolutely critical.
Because the or else is what? I mean,
Right.
It has to work because it has to work. That's sometimes what I would say. And it's, you know, it seems like a bad cliche or whatever, but there's times when you just got to get through something. And the only really way to do it is grit your teeth and let it happen, you know, and be strong.
Yeah. And last, you know, in as much as, you know, our symbol is concerned, but gravitas, so translates literally into gravity, but you will say the gravity of the situation, right? But that really is intended to be, I'll say, somewhat of a catch-all, where we're talking about, you know, solemnity, commitment, really trying to embody, you know, a solemn commitment to the task at hand, duty, responsibility, seriousness, you know, this notion that, hey, I don't take this endeavor lightly. I'm going into this with solemn commitment to either serve or to persevere or to be better. And I think why that's important, you know, again, today is because people are driven to distraction. You know, that commitment that I will commit to this endeavor in the long haul, or to being a good father, good husband, you know, a good man, good woman, you know, whatever it might be. I mean, that is a solemn commitment that is not to be taken lightly. You know, and that's why we have that as one of our cardinal virtues. And then, of course, you know, the Vincent Kiste Vincent, which is he conquers who conquers himself. So a constant reminder that, hey, when life assails you and your, you know, I'll say your human default is that, you know, oh my God, why is this happening to me? You got to do your own work, right? Don't play the victim. You know, figure out, okay, what is it that I can control? What can I control? What can I do? What can I do to move forward? Yeah, and do your own work. You can't change others. All you can do is change yourself. And, you know, say that level of agency, you know, understanding that, you know, you do have that agency over your thoughts, you know, over your emotions and actions. You know, that's super important. And I think, geez, I want to say I'll attribute it to General Krulak when he was Marine Corps Commandant. I want to say one of the things that he changed in Marine Basic was empowering young Marines to, I'll say during situational training exercises, he would put them in charge. And they're like, well, these are young Marines, they're boots. What do you put them in charge for? And really what he wanted to do was exercise their quote unquote locus of control. This notion that, you know, you do have control, right, of certain things. And you when in charge, take charge. And that's empowering, you know, and then that is a fundamental human need. And when people feel that they have no agency or no control, that they're just victims, that's disempowering. And that's not what we're about. And most certainly, you know, with the people that we've served, that's, you know, that's an important factor.
that local, empowerment. And that was something I learned a lot from great leaders that I loved, is to empower down to your next level subordinate leader, and have them grab that gravitas and say, no, hey, you got a big piece. It's, not for somebody your rank, but we trust you. And that, how that builds in here. We had a thing when you finally made pilot in command of an aircraft. And, you're not that much smarter than you were yesterday. But now I'm the pilot in command, and everything that happens is my fault. So when my very first flight, and they put me at the second lieutenant, which is really rare to see a second lieutenant in the units in aviation because it just takes so long to get through flight school. But I'm like, man, I'm a W01, and this is a second lieutenant. We're flying out of Seoul, Korea, down the river, and it's like I could hear things in that helicopter that I didn't hear the day before when I was second in command. Like it steps it up. It steps your game up. It steps up my awareness, and I started learning more because of that. And I think, and it's another thing I wanted to just say is that the warrior people that would need the warrior ethos to live that are a certain class of people we discussed. These are service-oriented people that would go into jobs like the military, like fire, like EMS, like healthcare, whatever it is, and maybe healthcare to the exception. But they're not going in there for the paycheck mostly.
Right.
Like, we didn't make a whole lot of money. Even a 4-star general didn't make a lot of money. Hell of a lot more than we did, but it wasn't.
They do okay.
Yeah, they do okay, but
compared to their contemporaries,
but they're not a CEO of a major.
Yeah,
where the responsibility level they have, and accountability they have, is not nearly financially compensated like it would be in the.
Yeah, well, they got lives at stake. I mean,
right,
geez.
and exactly, and so it's about doing that thing that's bigger than you, right? It's joining the bigger thing and having a bigger goal. And just being a piece of that, and not the star of it or whatever. So you're already working with people that are, set to think a certain way and be a certain way. And they're the ones that are to look for in this warrior ethos.
Well, I think, when they talk about having your tribe, finding your tribe, that's important. And I think a lot of that stems from, quite frankly, and I'll speak to our experience in the military, knowing what people stand for, what it is they value by and large. And it's not that it's necessarily prescribed to you. It kind of is like, hey, these are the Army values, and hence now they are your values. And you would hope that somebody embraces that willingly, and that they're not just like, yeah, okay, I'll say whatever, just to be a part of the team. That people really, truly internalize that. And I think most do, especially if you're a career military person, no doubt. And we'll speak to some, we'll break out, some of those, I'll call them cardinal virtues for us, into things that are maybe a little bit more intuitive. But I think where people run into trouble, our service members, and even our first responders, is the very nature of the job that they do, I think, necessitates an adoption of these virtues. It's almost just the price of doing business. So some of them I'll talk about, integrity, courage, honor, discipline, loyalty, service, respect, and selflessness as examples. And we could have a laundry list of them, but we'll use those as a point of departure. But I think, again, that's the price of doing business. That's the price of entry, to be honest with you. You go into that, if you don't have the integrity or courage or discipline to make it through training, and then to do your job, you've got no place in the military. So it's kind of an assumed given that when somebody shows up to your unit, that they have that.
And I don't know if that's something that's in other branches of the service or in, maybe the police force. It's a paramilitary-like organization. But, they did put these dog tags on us, and they had the acronym leadership. And
Right.
and I was looking at these belief systems that were written down here, and they're the same values, the same ones, only we put them in an acronym like the Army does. But some of the ones I really thought were important to me, one of them was the selfless service, and we're kind of kicking that around right now. It's like, I don't know why. I know I wanted to fly helicopters. Are you kidding me? But I thought I was serving myself a little bit by I'm just go do that initial thing, and then I'm going to go off to the airlines. It's just a stepping stone. But what had happened to me is these darn value systems grabbed a hold of me, and I really liked the tribe, right? The other one I really love, in this one it said courage, but in the Army they in particular say personal courage. And I was really like that one, and it guided me a lot of times when I was, freaking scared, to be honest with you. Like, I know we're going out on a really shit mission tonight, and I know the bad guy's going to be there, and I know we're going to do a pretty hairy raid. And everybody's going to make me be the guy that's the main planner, the main guy in front, and the one who's going to keep this stuff together the whole time. That's a lot of pressure, right? So, I don't know. I really would think about these damn things on my dog tags. When you fly, you can definitely have your dog tags on. And I'd look at those, and that personal courage, man, I would just have to sit there and really figure out how to, I was already in the warrior ethos. I was already being the warrior, but I had to super warrior it sometimes, and I'm sure you may feel the same way. And other people do the same way, but those are some of the ones. And I just think this whole thing with duty, respect, honor, integrity, I mean, those are just like, those belong for anybody and everybody, I feel like something we should be teaching to our high school. Now, maybe they are, I don't know, but it doesn't feel like we're coming out with the kind of values that we did. But I'll also mention that it got more important to me the older I got, the more rank I got, the more engaged in the deeper planning of the Army and the bigger picture of the Army, rather than just being a guy doing what they're told to do,
Well, I think, to your point, being a part of a unit, I think that, that unit, again, aviation, Army, in my case, I'll say the military academy, all of it, they've got their own, I'll say, culture and ethos, which, as I kind of mentioned before, the price of entry is the adoption of that. And whether, somebody's like, yeah, hey, I'll say it, but not really believe it. Okay, I don't think they flourish. I think people truly, to go through the ringer that you and I have both gone through and endure a lot of stuff, I think you really do have to truly embrace, what it is that they're saying. So, at the military academy, duty, honor, country. And yeah, in many regards, I know it's alive and well, but, the sense of duty, to a higher purpose, honor and integrity, doing the right things, even
nobody's looking,
even when nobody's looking. Right. Exactly. Because, it's the honorable and right thing to do. That's important. And then lastly, country. I mean, John F. Kennedy, right, asked, not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, right? Okay, are we still doing that? Or if it's like, hey, what can I get? What am I getting out of this? That sense of higher purpose. You get that in the military. And as you pointed out, you're like, hey, flying a helicopter is great. It's fun. It's a great skill. But then there's a point at which you're like, hey, man, I could die doing this, you know? But you're good with that because you're like, because that's my role. It's what I do. It's my contribution.
Yeah, I need the adventure.
And the Army needs me. And this is my contribution.
Yeah, it's my contribution. I always thought about it. This is my war machine. This is how I bring it to the enemy. And it may not be what everybody thinks about when they go to watch, Navy SEALs or whatever on TV or on the movies. But it's how we're bringing the fight, and we're bringing it every day, and it's hard, and it's behind the scenes, and this transitions back to coming home, and especially when you've been entrenched with that warrior ethos at all times. And in fact, amongst our own populations, we sniff out ones that aren't living up to the value system, to the standard. Because I was a standards guy. And I'll find you not living up to my standard, and I'll bring you up to the standard. Right. But then when we get home, I think for me, it was at every deployment return, driving around and just noticing nobody cares. Nobody cares. And then once I retired, it got really bad for me. Seeing the lack of, anybody living by these unbelievably good value systems, loyalty, duty, respect, or thinking that I already have those inherently. You have to treat me a certain way. You must already give me respect without any earning of that respect. or the fact that people could speak to me in a disrespectful way. And I'm thinking, do you have any idea? And it's like, once you start telling yourself, do you know what I've done for you? That's time to me, it was like time to not have those conversations.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you there, because a lot of people don't understand, they don't understand what you've been through. But, the other thing too is kind of like entitlement versus, rite of passage. That's another thing in military, obviously very structured.
You have to earn it.
You come up through the ranks, you're not given anything. You've got to go through all the wickets, CW1, right? Second lieutenant, boom, 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 boom. And you're doing crappy jobs. You're doing the extra duty that nobody wants to do, and it's because you're low man of the totem pole and you're earning your bones. And again, the rite of passage thing. And then finally you get to where you're a CW4, you're very accomplished. I'm going to speak to myself, but Lieutenant Colonel.
Right.
Okay, man, I've done some things. I've earned some things, and then you come out in the world and, this unbridled sense of entitlement, and you kind of scratch your head and you're like, well, what have you done? What have you done? What have you earned?
Right.
Well, here I am, and I'm entitled to this or that. And that doesn't sit well with a lot of people, especially not military people that have earned pretty much everything they've gotten. But yeah, we could go on, and I don't want to get overly negative, but those are the things, I'll say the friction points that, that we deal with a lot, and I think, again, not going on a tirade, but it is a function of the units and the organizational cultures to which we belonged. I'll say the ethos and the values that were predominant in those organizations. And then I'll say the level of disjointedness, when you come out and you're like, okay, these are valued by everybody, right? And it's like,
they're just not.
Not really, man. And that can be an issue. And I know with our warriors, bringing it back to that, with our warriors, that becomes a really big issue, because whether you're a veteran, first responder, whatever.
I can't even mention being a policeman right now.
Well, I know, and how, like you said, very aptly put, they go out every day. They're not in a theater. They rotate back and, all right, I'm safe now. They're on the beat all the time. Firefighters getting called.
It never ends for them, right?
It never ends, and then they have to embrace these values, I would submit to you, out of absolute necessity. This is the prerequisite to do your job. And then, when they're faced with other people that just kind of don't understand or don't care, or even more, not even don't care, they just don't value it.
Yeah, they don't value it, and you're providing them a service to the community, and they don't even understand. So for me, that I started feeling like nobody gets it. And when I found out that's not true. Well, there's a lot of us that embody all this, and we all are sitting, not all of us, but a lot of us are sitting back. But what we can do here, and I think what this is all about, is starting this movement, of don't take this anymore. We're not victims. We've got a lot to give, and we have these values that we already understand. We already know how to bring our warrior. We may not know how to turn it off. We may need some adjustments here and there, but there's a lot of help out there. And Warriors Ascent is my favorite one, and the one I'm going to spend all my time on because it worked for me, and that's all that I needed to say for me. But I think that when you do discover, and there's a cohort happening right now, and they come in and they're quiet, and it takes them some time to realize, hey, these people all around me, they all think like I think. They have the value system I have. They're going through similar things, looking at people that don't value what they value, and we can have our own communities again, our own tribes again. We just have to stitch these networks of people together that are there, helping each other with this quest, this journey of, finding out how to become that enlightened warrior, or that, the queen, or the lover, the empath, whatever we need help with. In particular, I think we're experts at the warrior piece. We're trying to be. I'm trying to learn from you and continue my journey through life. But I've learned a lot about this, and I think that structuring this thought pattern in this manner has been very effective for me.
No, I'd say the power of speaking to Warriors Ascent, our 501, C3 program that helps veterans and first responders with post-traumatic stress. What we see, what's powerful, I'll say a powerful modality or approach in terms of addressing, mental health, post-traumatic stress, whatever it might be, aside from the curricular, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy, self-care. But what you brought up was being with other people, very much like themselves. And it's not all veterans, all first responders. It's a collection.
A good collection.
But shared trauma, in that they've dealt with, a lot of very similar things. And again, that value system, I think that maybe is the commonality, that not only if they shared, or shared trauma, something that they can relate to, but same types of values in having to do what it is that they have to do. So I think that's a powerful piece.
Well, the diversity we had as a military organization, and we were kind of blind to it, but at the same time, it was so powerful for us, and we can do that again. And we have that same kind of diversity that happens at Warriors Ascent between the different types of first responders and different warriors that show up there. And when we have each other's back again, when you're out there at some of those ceremonies and you see people grabbing a hold of somebody who just read the most emotional letter you've ever heard, and the way the team grabs them, the tribe grabs them, or her, it's a powerful thing that is, hard to understand unless you witness it. And so your program is the thing that's really helped me, and I've got this real mission to shed that light to other warriors too. And I'm with you like crazy when you asked me if I wanted to join a movement to not only help veterans with PTSD and first responders not commit suicide, but to thrive, drop the victimhood, and let's freaking thrive. Let's not just live.
Not
and
just
when
survive.
you said that to me, I said,
not
I
just
am
survive, but thrive.
Yeah,
No,
and flourish.
So bottom line, getting back to the warrior ethos, and in closing, trying to bring it back. Marcus Aurelius says, "Waste no more time talking about what a good man is. Be one." So you can debate all day long what constitutes a good man.
I like this a lot.
But the bottom line is you got to execute. So that's where I think, hey, warrior archetype is empowering, knowing, hey, it resides in all of us, but how does one execute? How does one operationalize the warrior? And to me, it's living the warrior ethos. I mean, that's key. So again, we've got prudentia, fortitudo, and gravitas. I mean, those are the cardinal virtues, I'll say, that govern the way, we hope to show up. But, breaking that out even further, having integrity, courage, honor, discipline, right? Loyalty, service, respect, selflessness, a sense of duty. Bottom line is getting back to what you're saying. Hey, the movement, how do you make that change? And when you see things where, man, do people even value that anymore? Again, he conquers who conquers himself. The best way to do that is to live these ethos, these virtues, set the example yourself, and be, I'll say, a shining exemplar. Lead by example, as they say in the military, principles of leadership.
You put out this energy, and you'll find the energy coming back.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, so I think really, that is the thing to do, is live the ethos, set the example, be a person of integrity, courage, all of it, and set a great example. And hopefully others will follow suit, by your great example, and say, hey, I want more of that. I want to be like that.
I bet
because that person is flourishing. So that's our hope for everybody.
Awesome, Mike. Great job. Appreciate your
Appreciate
experience and expertise.
Bam. There it is.
Hi, Matt Hastings here, sending a thank you for watching this episode of the Warriors Ascent podcast. We strive to build a community of warriors made up of our nation's veterans and first responders. And to reach as many of those in need as possible, we need your help. Please just smash that like button and comment or share our content. Warriors Ascent is a Kansas City-based nonprofit that aids veterans and first responders with PTS. I went through this effective program and want those that are struggling to find what I found. Check us out on our website at warriorsascent.org.